How to build a backdrop forest for my model railroad. That's the subject of this video. On this section of my diorama, I want a little birch forest to make the transition to the backdrop a little more fluent. One of the reasons that I built this diorama is that I wanted to investigate the distance that is needed between the tracks and the backdrop. This is also the reason that I tapered the space behind the tracks. Of course, we always want too much on our layouts, so to make the most of limited space, we are often tempted to lay the tracks too close to the backdrop. So how do we make a fluent transition between tracks and backdrop in, say, 10 centimeters or 7? How does that work? Is that enough? First, I'll cut off this piece of foam. It's easier to model the forest on the actual site, I think, and gluing it back together is no problem. You see, I made some wire skeletons. They are a bit haphazard. I'm not very interested in their individual shape, but more in their total shape as a little forest. Now let's start making some tree forms out of this wire spaghetti. This is a simple matter of cutting the loops and forming them into shape. As we are making a backdrop forest, there's no need for branches to go backwards. So all the branches stick forward towards the viewer. In a way, we are making half trees. Now, as you've seen me bend trees before, I think we'll skip this part and show you what it looks like. Here I've got them all neatly lined up, so you get the idea. As the trunks are a bit thin and flimsy, I covered them with scenic cement and then with sawdust to give them a little bit more firmness and thickness. For this I'm using just sawdust out of my garage. There's plenty of it under my woodworking machinery. And now it's time to cover them with modeling paste. I mixed the modeling paste with a raw umber acrylic paint. And as mentioned in other videos, I think raw umber is a really good natural base coat for lots of natural projects you're making. You never can go wrong with it. This is a process that can't be rushed and you need several layers to do it right. In the end, I think I covered all the trees 3 or 4 times and then went over it with a wet brush to smoothen the surface. Now then, some paint. You see me spray painting the branches here. I'm not very interested in the trunks, since we will paint them white, but we'll do that after this. Let's paint the trunks. We'll do that using a bit of bone white, which is a sort of off-white color, which matches great with the real color of birch trees. I do that with a brush, which is better than spraying it, because I can control better what I paint and what I do not paint. Between the trees, I'll place some dummies. They're made from raspberry roots, and I paint them just like I paint the trunks of the birch trees. Those roots I dug up out of my vegetable garden entirely free. But man, is this gold. Look at the shape, look at the texture, look at the detail. That's really great, isn't it? And now it's time to do some planting. It's actually quite hard to place them this close to each other, because all the branches hook into each other. So it really takes some time to get them just as you want. Now I'm filling in some gaps with the dummy trees, which look quite nice, I think. So there we are, a row of skeleton trees. It's time to fixate them. For this, I'm using the same glue as I used to fixate my ballast with. That is 50-50% of matte medium and water. And then there's of course the little horizontal streaks we often see on birches, and that give them their characteristic look. For this I've mixed raw umber with a bit of green, And then I took a very small brush to place the accents very carefully. Now then, static grass. I apply glue to the branches where I want my little twigs on and apply static grass after it. Piece by piece I'm going through all of the trees to get static grass there where I want it. I'm applying too much of it since I can always shake the excess off. The previous birch I covered with patches of filter wool, but I want to try the static grass method as it leaves a bit of a finer finish, I hope. And after all, this is an experimental diorama. I just want to test out some things before I go to the real layout. There's always places that are hard to reach, and a pair of pliers will do wonders there. Now it's time to turn the whole thing over to shake off the excess grass. I gently tap it to make all the excess grass fall off. After this, I spray the whole piece over with scenic cement for extra firmness. Look at the back side of the scene. You can clearly see that it's only half trees that I made. There you are. This is what it looks like now. Let's leave it overnight to dry and tomorrow sprinkle over some leaves. So there we are. It's the next day now. Let's apply some leaves. I start by spraying my whole workpiece with scenic cement and I give it a good soak. After that I apply leaves. They are leaves from Nog in the middle green variety. I just apply them carefully, shaking off the excess, applying, shaking off, applying, shaking off in an endless circle until everything is done and is to my liking. After I'm done with the greenery, there's some pruning to do because there's always branches hanging down that I don't like and I just cut them off with a pair of scissors. And then comes the easy part, gluing my workpiece back together to my diorama. Now if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again next time.